The WNBA fined me for
No! You got fined for episode 1?
They fined me $1,500. I'm like, what? I'm like, this is just the beginning. I was like, you're kidding. What happens is they email our GM, and she pulls me aside and she goes, come here, Soph, I have to talk to you. And this was in like front of everybody. And I was like, what did I do now? And she just smiled and she goes, hey, they're gonna fine you again.
The WNBA thought they had Sophie Cunningham figured out. Hit her with fines, silence the criticism, maintain control. But here's what they missed, and what every other channel covering this story completely overlooked. They just created the most powerful independent force in women's basketball. I'm Jax Riley, and I've been filtering through the digital breadcrumbs of this situation, and the signals point to something far bigger than a simple player versus league dispute. While everyone else is treating this like another disciplinary action story, I've been connecting the dots on what's really happening here. Sophie Cunningham didn't just get fined. She got handed the blueprint to systematically dismantle the WNBA's control over player narratives. And if you're here because you want the real story behind the story, hit that like button right now, because what I'm about to show you will change how you see every fine, every controversy, and every power play in this league moving forward. The temperature of the online conversation around Sophie's latest $1,500 fine isn't what you'd expect. From a typical WNBA punishment, this isn't players staying quiet and moving on. This is a masterclass in how to transform league discipline into personal empire building. And other players are absolutely taking notes. Let me paint you the picture that no other creator seems willing to discuss. In the last 4 months, Sophie Cunningham has received exactly $2,000 in fines from the WNBA. First, $500 for her TikTok roasting referees with Sabrina Carpenter lyrics. Then $1,500 for her podcast comments about officiating consistency. But here's the angle nobody's covering. Those $2,000 in punishments generated her 1.4 million new followers across platforms. Do the math with me for a second. Traditional social media advertising costs between $1 and $3 per follower. Sophie spent $2,000 in fines and gained 1.4 million followers. That's approximately 6 cents per follower, a 3,333 times better return on investment than standard marketing. The WNBA didn't fine her. They accidentally funded the most successful viral marketing campaign in women's basketball history. But the story doesn't end there. While other channels are focused on the surface-level defiance narrative, I've been reading the signals of something much more sophisticated happening behind the scenes. Official sources won't tell you this, but if you follow the digital breadcrumbs, a different picture emerges of what Sophie's really building. Her podcast, Show Me Something, launched July 28th, with a 4.8 out of 5 rating on Apple Podcasts. Co-hosted with Bravo's Summer House cast member West Wilson. Distributed through iHeart Podcasts and The Volume. The timing wasn't coincidental. Her controversial comments that earned the $1,500 fine happened on the debut episode. That's strategic. Content marketing that generated millions of impressions and established her as an independent media personality completely outside WNBA control. Here's what they missed, and here's what makes this so dangerous for league authority. Sophie isn't just building a social media following. She's creating a multimedia empire that bridges basketball audiences with reality TV fans, entertainment industry connections, and general sports entertainment consumers who appreciate authentic personality over sanitized media training. C2, Lakers' Jeannie Buss has reportedly reached out about collaboration opportunities. Major entertainment figures are taking notice of her authentic brand. Her jersey sales sold out through July, and her sponsored content rates jumped from $10,000 pre-viral fame to an estimated $20,000 plus per post. These aren't the metrics of a punished player. These are the numbers of someone who's systematically monetizing league authority challenges. Now let's get into rumor territory. Nothing is officially confirmed, but the online chatter is too loud to ignore about what's really driving this timing. Sophie's viral moments aren't happening in a vacuum. They're coinciding perfectly with the most explosive collective bargaining negotiations in WNBA history. 80% of WNBA players become free agents in 2025. The players just rejected the league's first CBA proposal, calling it a slap in the face. They're demanding percentage-based revenue sharing from the new $2.2 to $3 billion media rights deal. And right in the middle of these negotiations, Sophie Cunningham is demonstrating that individual players can generate independent value that rivals entire franchise marketing efforts.
I think I'm really the only one who publicly is a massive shitter on refs. It's like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I am someone who says what everyone else is thinking or talking about, not just with the refs,
Did you post
but
that
with
after
Detroit,
after you guys lost?
with Cleveland. I want people to hear what I just said. I am the only one, but if you ask our league, they feel the same exact way.
That clip right there changes everything about how we understand what Sophie's doing. She's not just complaining about referees. She's positioning herself as the voice of what every player in the league thinks, but doesn't say publicly. If you ask our league, they feel the same exact way. That's not individual rebellion. That's union organizing through social media. The WNBA's disciplinary strategy is backfiring so spectacularly because they're treating labor organizing as simple player misconduct. Every fine validates Sophie's position that the league is more interested in controlling narratives than addressing systematic problems. And every viral moment she creates demonstrates player power to generate engagement independently of league marketing. But here's where it gets really interesting, and here's the angle that separates this analysis from everything else you'll see. I've been pulling the thread on Sophie's strategic positioning as Caitlin Clark's enforcer, and what emerges is a sophisticated influence network that extends far beyond basketball. Sophie revealed on her podcast that when she had that famous altercation protecting Caitlin Clark, Clark said, "Finally," in the locker room afterward. That suggests internal team approval for her aggressive tactics. But industry insiders are speculating that Sophie's enforcer role was strategically designed by Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White, who signed Cunningham specifically to provide physical protection for the league's biggest star. This creates a fascinating dynamic. Sophie gets fined for criticizing the very officials who aren't protecting the player generating the most revenue and attention for the league. It's a perfect storm of competing interests that she's exploiting brilliantly. Her connection to Caitlin Clark activates the 3x engagement multiplier effect. But Sophie's independent viral coefficient now rivals Clark's impact. Her 1.7 million TikTok followers and 1.1 million Instagram followers represent more engaged audiences than many entire WNBA teams. She's become a powerful independent media entity that bypasses traditional sports media gatekeepers entirely. Let me break down the temperature of the online conversation that's really telling the story here. Analysis of Reddit discussions shows Sophie has achieved rare dual status as both controversial figure and fan favorite. Community sentiment shows 407 upvotes on fine announcement posts with 159 comments, indicating high engagement but divided opinion. But here's the key. Reddit users are increasingly framing her fines as badges of honor rather than disciplinary actions. The narrative threads include praise for her enforcer role protecting Caitlin Clark, criticism of WNBA's fine priorities during CBA negotiations, and speculation about systematic bias in officiating that she's exposing. That's not just fan support. That's community validation of her institutional critique. Now, official sources won't tell you this, but the temperature of the online conversation suggests something deeper is happening with WNBA officiating across the board. Sophie isn't the only voice raising these concerns. Multiple coaches and players have criticized officiating consistency. Fever coach Stephanie White called Aaliyah Boston the worst officiated post player in the league. Angel Reese stated, "Officiating in this league has to be fixed." Minnesota. Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve claimed the 2024 WNBA Finals was stolen due to bad calls. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert acknowledged concerns during All-Star Weekend, stating, "We are aware of the concerns, and consistency is crucial." This suggests Sophie's criticism reflects broader systemic issues rather than isolated complaints. But she's the one getting fined because she's the one with the platform and the courage to say it publicly.
The refs, and I'm not saying they're emotional, like the men and women, it doesn't matter the gender. On our side, they are too emotionally invested and they can't take it.
That level of analytical thinking separates Sophie from simple complaint culture. She's identifying emotional overinvestment as a core issue affecting officials regardless of gender, showing her analysis goes beyond surface-level grievances to systemic problems with officiating psychology. That's the kind of sophisticated critique that makes league officials uncomfortable because it's harder to dismiss as emotional reaction. But here's what really makes this dangerous for WNBA control. And here's why other players are watching so carefully. Sophie has perfected a repeatable viral formula that any player could adopt. Controversial statement leads to WNBA, fine leads to defiant social media response, leads to follower surge, leads to brand partnership opportunities. Each cycle generates exponentially more engagement than traditional athletic achievement content. Her TikTok videos are receiving 1.3 million plus views and spawning countless reaction videos. Her authenticity and challenging league authority resonates particularly with Gen Z audiences who value athlete activism over corporate compliance. She's creating a pipeline for long-term WNBA audience development that league marketing has struggled to achieve. The competitive advantage analysis I've been conducting shows Sophie positioned for crossover entertainment opportunities that extend far beyond basketball. Her podcast success creates an independent revenue stream outside WNBA control. Her social media following rivals entire franchises in engagement metrics. This suggests potential evolution from role player to multimedia personality, who could influence league power dynamics permanently. That brings us to the inevitable question that's keeping WNBA executives awake at night. What happens when other players start adopting Sophie's model? What happens when systematic criticism becomes systematic resistance during the most critical growth period in league history? If WNBA players secure percentage-based revenue sharing and enhanced free speech protections in the new CBA, expect more players to adopt Sophie's model of authentic criticism, generating viral engagement. The current media rights deal, valued at $2.2 to $3 billion, creates exponential salary potential that could transform league economics and reduce the effectiveness of small fines as disciplinary tools. Players with independent social media followings will gain unprecedented leverage in contract negotiations and league policy discussions. Sophie Cunningham isn't just challenging referee criticism policies. She's demonstrating a blueprint for player empowerment that transcends traditional athletic achievement metrics. I've been filtering through the noise of traditional sports media coverage, and the signals all point to the same conclusion. The WNBA's attempt to control Sophie through fines has created exactly the opposite of their intended effect. Instead of silencing criticism, they've amplified her platform. Instead of maintaining authority, they've demonstrated their powerlessness against savvy social media strategy. Sophie's success in monetizing league punishment creates a template for other players to challenge WNBA authority structures during this critical growth period. As collective bargaining negotiations intensify and players demand larger revenue shares, her viral moments demonstrate player ability to generate independent value that rivals league marketing efforts. The league's next moves will say everything about their willingness to adapt to new player power dynamics. Will they keep escalating fines and crackdowns, validating Sophie's narrative about authoritarian control? Or will they open the door for honest conversations and real improvements that address the systematic issues she's exposing? Here's what I predict happens next, based on reading the trajectory of this entire situation. Sophie's sustained criticism, combined with similar complaints from coaches and players league-wide, creates mounting pressure for WNBA officiating reforms before the 2025 playoffs. Commissioner Engelbert's public acknowledgement of concerns suggests potential policy changes in referee training, accountability measures, or transparency initiatives. But the bigger transformation is cultural. Sophie's success bridging WNBA and entertainment audiences through reality TV connections, podcast partnerships, and authentic personality creates a model for league growth beyond traditional sports marketing. Expect more players to develop multimedia, brands that leverage athletic platforms for broader cultural influence, potentially transforming the WNBA from niche sports league to mainstream entertainment property with diverse revenue streams and audience demographics. The influence network Sophie has activated through her enforcer persona for Caitlin Clark extends into multiple narrative streams that she's strategically positioned herself at the intersection of the Clark protection storyline, the WNBA officiating, controversy, and the broader player empowerment movement during CBA negotiations. That's not accidental positioning. That's sophisticated media strategy. Her content generates engagement across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and podcast platforms, creating a multimedia narrative ecosystem that reaches demographics traditionally outside women's basketball viewership. Reality TV fans, social justice advocates, and general sports entertainment consumers who appreciate authentic personality over sanitized corporate messaging. Traditional media figures, including Chris Evert, Dave Portnoy, and NBA stars like LeBron James have amplified her positions by criticizing WNBA officiating. ESPN, Yahoo Sports, and major outlets consistently cover her statements, creating mainstream legitimacy for her criticism of league operations. This traditional media validation transforms her from social media personality into recognized voice for systematic change in professional women's basketball. That's the kind of influence network that makes league executives nervous because it operates completely outside their control systems. Sophie doesn't need WNBA marketing support or media relations assistance. She's built direct relationships with fans, journalists, and entertainment industry figures who amplify her message organically. So here's what's fact and what's speculation. Let's break it down clearly. Sophie Cunningham has received confirmed fines totaling $2,000, $500 for the TikTok roast, and $1,500 for podcast comments. Her follower growth, engagement metrics, and brand partnership opportunities are documented and verifiable. Her podcast ratings and entertainment, industry connections are established facts. The speculation centers around coordinated strategy timing with CBA negotiations, systematic team approval for her enforcer tactics, and entertainment industry collaboration offers. But even the speculation is based on digital breadcrumbs and industry insider conversations that suggest sophisticated planning behind what appears to be spontaneous rebellion. What's absolutely clear is that the WNBA's disciplinary approach has created the exact opposite of their intended outcome. They wanted to silence criticism and maintain control. Instead, they've funded a viral marketing campaign that transformed a role player into one of the most influential voices in women's basketball. And here's the most important part for everyone watching this situation develop. Sophie Cunningham has proven that league authority only exists when players choose to respect it. When players have independent platforms, engaged audiences, and the courage to speak authentically about systematic problems, traditional disciplinary tools become promotional opportunities. The question isn't whether Sophie will face more fines. She's already said she expects them, and she's ready to take them. The question is whether other players will adopt her model of transforming punishment into profit, criticism into community building, and controversy into career advancement. Because, if they do, the power dynamics in professional women's basketball will shift permanently. Players with independent media empires don't need league approval for their voices. They don't need traditional media gatekeepers for their platforms. And they don't need to stay quiet about systematic problems to protect their careers. Sophie Cunningham just declared war on the status quo, and she's winning decisively. The WNBA tried to make an example of her, and she made an empire instead. Other players are absolutely watching, learning, and preparing to follow her blueprint for challenging authority through authentic engagement. This battle is far from over. Expect more fines, more viral moments, and more players discovering that the best way to gain power in professional sports isn't staying quiet and following rules. It's speaking truth, building community, and turning league discipline into personal advancement. The revolution in player empowerment isn't coming. It's already here, and Sophie Cunningham is leading it from the front lines. Who do you think will be next to adopt her blueprint? Drop your predictions in the comments below. And if you want to stay ahead of these power shifts in women's basketball, smash that subscribe button and hit notifications, because the story behind the story is just getting started. The WNBA thought they could control the narrative, but players like Sophie are proving that authentic voices with engaged communities are more powerful than traditional authority structures. The future of professional women's basketball belongs to players brave enough to speak truth and smart enough to monetize controversy. Sophie Cunningham is showing them exactly how it's done, one fine at a time. Share this analysis with anyone who needs to understand how player empowerment is really changing professional sports. Because this isn't just about basketball. This is about what happens when authentic voices challenge institutional authority and win through community building and strategic thinking. The WNBA is learning the hard way that you can't find your way to respect. Sophie Cunningham is teaching them that lesson publicly, profitably, and permanently.